everybody, and welcome to this review of the changes to Drukhari, including a brand new detachment, the Skysplinter Assault. I am Tom, the very lowest of men, and I'm very excited to be back here talking about my favourite army, the Dark Kin, who've got a nice little buff here. I think they're going to be in a good position after this, and there's some very exciting things that you, as a Drukhari player, can be doing. So, let's start with the overall shift in balance changes. So there have been some general changes to Drukhari that don't just apply to the new detachment. You are gaining +1 AP in melee when empowered by a pain token, which is a huge improvement to all of our combat units, makes them a little bit better at getting through key targets in key moments in the game. Another massive change is that the Archon can now lead Incubi. The Archon gives full rerolls to wound to the unit that he's leading, so this is a really nice combination with the Incubi. Once you're empowered, that is a lot of AP3 damage to attacks going through very consistently. Next up, we've got the new detachment, the Skysplinter Assault detachment. Now, this is hugely exciting because I think this is a shift back towards a way of playing that Drukhari players really like, which is all about transports, all about melee trading units, all about aggressive combat. And it has a bunch of cool tricks and enhancements we'll get to in a moment. Alongside both of these changes, you've also got some points drops across the board. So the transports have all got cheaper, 10 points off on Venoms and Raiders. Talos have gone down, Grotesques have gone down. You've got some points drops on Incubi, points drops on the Succubus. So a bunch of different things which are just going to give you maybe 60, 70 more points to play with. And I think this really benefits Real Space Raiders detachment, but it's definitely going to work well with the new detachment as well. So primarily what I'm going to talk about today is the Skysplinter Assault detachment, whole new detachment from the Balanced Data Slate, which is massively exciting and gives us a bunch of new tools to play with. So the detachment rule is very simple. It's Reign of Cruelty. This is all about disembarking from transports and getting buffs to your output for doing so. So units disembarking transports now gain Ignores Cover and Lance. So that means your shooting is going to hit a little bit harder, and it means that your melee units are suddenly going to be much more effective in combat. Lance helps all of our Strength 3, Strength 4 weapons get through tougher targets, especially medium-sized infantry. And with Incubi and Archon rerolls, gets through most things, to be honest. The Ignores cover is really nice on Venoms, where units can get out, shoot, and then hop back in the Venom at the end of the fight phase. So that's a very nice one for your shooting as well. The whole detachment is really focused in on this relationship between units and transports, which is obviously a very fundamental part of how Drukhari play, and I think that's one of the really exciting things about the detachment. We've got a bunch of enhancements. I've highlighted my two favorite ones for you here. The most significant probably is the Nightmare Shroud, which allows the bearer's unit to, when they disembark, be untargetable with the Overwatch stratagem. Drukhari have been dying a lot to Overwatch in 10th edition. Let's not beat around the bush with that. It's been brutal. Now you can have a very hard-hitting unit, like an Archon and 10 Incubi, for example, that you know you can be aggressive with, get out of a transport, and not immediately lose to Overwatch. You can also use this on a Succubus with Witches as well. Probably a must-take. There's going to be a space for this somewhere if you're running this detachment. Next up, we've got Spiteful Raider. Very simple one. This allows the bearer's unit to generate an additional pain token if they destroy a unit on an objective. Skysplinter Assault doesn't have many ways to boost pain token generation. So you're starting with 3 and trying to use those very carefully, which means that enhancements like this are very useful for just getting you a couple more in the early stages with a little trading piece to keep your pain token build up. And this is one of the big key differences between this detachment and the Real Space Raid, which we'll get to a little bit later. The other two enhancements are a little bit more niche, but they're not bad. You've got Sadistic Fulcrum, so the bearer's unit can empower a transport within 3 inches as well as their own unit. Very funny if you're using a Tantalus. You could have a fully stacked Court and Cabalites with an Archon getting out of a Tantalus, using a single pain token to fuel the Tantalus's shooting as well as their own. Very, very potent, a little bit more situational. Finally, you've got a Phantasmal Smoke, which lets the bearer's unit have cover and stealth when they are within 6 inches of the transport in question. So this is, I think, quite a nice little durability buff, but most of our units are too fragile to massively benefit. I think it's not bad on a Court, and it's not bad on a Beast Pack, ironically, if you want a Beast Pack sort of running along with a transport, so it's a little bit harder to shoot, a little bit harder to remove. But again, I think in general, you want to go for offense rather than durability. With Drukhari, that's what they're best at. They are not sticking around anyway, so there's no point burning your points trying to make them live that little bit longer. Next up, we've got the stratagems. Crucially, these are all 1 CP, so that's really nice. I think in general, management of CP is going to be one of the key skills to acquire with Skysplinter Assault, really. It's not always going to be easy to know exactly when to use CP and how, so you need to work out what the key tricks you want to rely on are. So our first stratagem is Pounce on the Prey. Very nice and very simple. You can move a transport, disembark, and then still charge, effectively giving you assault ramp for 1 CP. Obviously, our transports go 14 inches. You've then got your disembark, and you've got a charge on top. That gives you a bit of reach without relying too much on disembarking and running across the board. Very flexible, and it's going to catch opponents out. So I think Pounce on the Prey is really nice. You're definitely going to use this. Next up is Vicious Blades. This lets you do a little mortal wounds sprinkle with a transport after it's fought. So it's 5 ups for each model inside to do mortal wounds, 4 ups if said models are racks. This 1-2s with tank shot really well. So you could have a raider with 10 or 11 people charge in, do a tank shot, then do this on top. Quite nice for just dealing with incidental chaff and small units without actually having to get out of your boat. But also sprinkling a few mortal wounds on a hard target you're trying to finish off is very nice. So between tank shot, grenade, and vicious blades, suddenly you've got a whole bunch of ways to plink away at a hard target and bring it down. Very cool. Next stratagem is Skyborn Annihilation. This lets you disembark and gain either sustained 1 or sustained 2 on your shooting if you are Kabalites. So this is very powerful in as much as with Power from Pain, empowerment on your unit, you are going to have full rerolls to hit. So that gives you a much better chance of proccing off sustained 1 or sustained 2. So there's going to be moments in the game where with your dark light shooting, your blasters, your dark lances, your blast pistols, being able to pop some extra hits is really big for just helping you chew through a key unit at a key moment in the game. Very nice with Kabalites. Probably not that essential on anything else. Guess you could have 10 Mandrakes getting out of a raider, just get a lot of shots with your dev wounds later, but I think Kabalites are the main beneficiaries of this. It's more of a clutch play. My favorite, I think, of the new detachment is Wraith-like Retreat. This lets you make a move or a fallback after fighting at the end of the fight phase. So you can either re-embark into a unit, into a transport with your unit, or if you are witches specifically, you can move in any direction you like. So this helps you to get a bunch of OC2 onto an important point at a key moment in the game. With witches, it could also help you position for scoring your secondary cards, getting into the right bits of the board. And it also means that some of your glass hammer units have a realistic shot at killing something and then getting back in a transport ready to try and do it again next time. Not necessarily easy to set up and use well, but this might help you trade a little bit without actually losing assets during some of the cagier moments in the game. I think Wraith-like Retreat is really powerful, but I don't think it's easy to use. Working this out is going to be very important to getting the most out of Skysplinter Assault. Next up, we've got Swooping Mockery. There's a lot of strats like this now, and it's just very good, right? So when someone moves within 9 inches of your transport, you can move it 6. This gives you a lot of scope for denying enemy charges. It gives you some tricky plays for repositioning to set up a counter charge yourself from a transport in your turn. And I think it's extremely useful and is going to catch a lot of people out. Finally, we have Night Shield, which lets you pop a 4-up invuln on a Drukhari vehicle when it's targeted by shooting. Obviously, our vehicles are very fragile, so a 4-up might not save you, but there's going to be moments in the game where this is just going to help you to just survive that little bit longer, bounce off a couple of key shots, and then spring your counterattack. So useful, but again, when you're trying to juggle and manage all of these different stratagems at once, you have to think very carefully about whether that 4-up invuln is going to be worth it. So what are my initial thoughts on Skysplinter? Well, I think first and foremost, this is an extremely fun detachment, right? All of those booster shooting in combat really amp up the vibe of Drukhari in 9th edition, where infantry and transports was the key way to play the army. So witches, incubi, archons and kabalites, and Lilith, and to a lesser extent Drazar, all benefit from this detachment a lot. Gives them tricks for staging, jumping out, killing things, hiding away again, or moving into good positions to deny the enemy and score your secondaries. So a lot of the classic melee units really benefit from Skysplinter, and Kabalites shooting is definitely a lot more consistent with it as well. Raiders and Venoms are absolutely central to the entire detachment, so you need to work out exactly how many transports you can use and use safely on the board. Obviously, Drukhari are still phenomenally fragile, so they dive very hard into a lot of different things in the meta. So actually using this well without just getting all of your vehicles destroyed and demeched really quickly is going to be key. Getting that balance between reserves dropping in, transports you can hide carefully on the board, and working out when to push with them is going to be really important. I think unlike Real Space Raid, where pain tokens always ended up feeling, like they were just flowing everywhere, no problems whatsoever, pain token management is definitely a lot more difficult in Skysplinter Assault. You want to be careful when you choose to use them. You want to make sure you are keeping some hidden away for when you use your big hammer units and your go turns at crucial times. There are a lot of good tricks here, but we don't have extra CP generation. Obviously, if you're doing tactical, you might be able to save up a few, but you need to make sure your CP spend is very thought out and deliberated, and you don't waste them on things like rerolling a wound or popping the wrong stratum at the wrong time. If you can get that balance, I think this is a really nice detachment that will sing. It doesn't look broken or overpowered to me. I don't see it troubling the very top of the game. I think there's just too many things out there with much more brute force and raw strength. And Drukhari is still very vulnerable to anything that's quick and can shoot them on terms that they don't find favorable. But massive amount of fun and gives you a lot of ways to really bully and control space in the game. So where does that leave Drukhari post slate? Well, I think Drukhari were, let's not forget, one of the worst armies in the game. So all told, this is a very good balance change for them. It brings a bunch of units up. I think it gives you some very real choices. I think you can play Skysplinter Assault and Real Space Raid to do very different things. Yeah, Real Space Raid still has fire and fade. It still has -1 to wound and -1 to hit. It's got some very nice tricks in there. The enhancements and the massive generation of pain tokens go much better with things like Scourge, other kinds of shooting. But Skysplinter gives you a much more aggressive primary and space denial option that's going to get the best out of witches and incubi. Incubi and archons are going to work great in both detachments, to be honest, because AP3 and rerolling hits and wounds is still great, irrespective of whether you're getting that lance from the Skysplinter Assault. So it's going to be worth experimenting, and I think you'll see a lot of archons using both of these in the short term as they figure out their place. But I think Skysplinter is obviously a little bit more fun, a little bit more dynamic in different ways than Real Space Raid. Infantry melee trading for Skysplinter, more of a standing off shooting and control for the Real Space Raid. All in all, though, extremely promising. I think it's breathed a lot of life into a faction that was really struggling, and I'm really excited to get this out and try it on the tabletop and see what can be done. Thank you very much for watching. Obviously, we at 6 Plus are going to continue trying to bring you guys the best 40k content that we possibly can. So do hit like and subscribe on our video. We obviously have our regular podcast show going out on at 8:30 UK time on a Tuesday night. So please do tune in for that if you want to hear more about our adventures. And I look forward to bringing you more 40k content very soon. Get hunting. It's time.